Also intimidating, as each of those partials has over 200 parameters.
That will take me right
Now,
to
to be
the
clear,
cutoff
if you're
setting
simply
for
looking
the
to
partial.
adjust the basic parameters
But
of a
note
whole
that when I
sine
change
chord
it,
tone,
I'm only
best
changing
that
it for partial
a
1.
Zen-core I-Arp
Partial
defaults
2
to a
remains
partial
PCM piano sound.
Oh, hey. I'm Robert St. John of JUPITER-Xpert. You may know me from such previous classics as Step Edit Makes Me Want to Punch Walls and I Made This Button Do Something Weird. It occurred to me that I've been making this all too hard. The Jupiter can do many advanced things, and you can even trick them into doing things they weren't meant to do. But I think what's needed most right now is to take a few steps back and show some practical tips that are more useful to musicians. The Jupiter synths have a reputation for complexity, but it doesn't have to be complicated. A few topics come to mind, and I'm going to try to do a few more basic tutorials that cover useful features that may not be immediately obvious. And in celebration of 1 year of JUPITER-Xpert and 1,000 subscribers to this channel, I'm going to finally let you see my face and hear my voice as we cover some basics. For example, I recently realized that many users didn't know how to get the Jupiter to play a simple arpeggio, or couldn't get the results they wanted because of I-Arp. Yes, it's all documented in the manuals, but those don't really show you how to do it. Now, because the Jupiter is a 5-part multi-timbral synth, it's not as simple as pushing an ARP button and twisting a knob. But it's not difficult, and I can show you why it's worth the few extra steps. So let's take a look at arpeggios. Now I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to demonstrate this fairly quickly to show how fast it goes. Then I'll go back and explain each of the steps in more detail. If I do it in my usual verbose fashion, it looks slow and painful. So hang with me here.
So let's get started. I thought today we'd just do a very simple little scene that I hope you'll enjoy.
So, starting with a basic scene with just one active part, we're going to page backward to ARP Common Edit and turn I-Arp Type and I-Arp Rhythm off. Next, you definitely want to turn Beat in the Play Detector off. Then we're going to page backward to ARP Part Edit, turn the switch on, which activates the ARP for that part. Go down to Grid Note, change the timing of the ARP. We can change octave range. And finally, we'll change motif, which is up, down, random.
That's all there is to it.
The first thing to note is that I-Arpeggio is not the arpeggio function. This is probably the source of much of the confusion. I-Arp is a feature that combines ARP patterns, keyboard notes, rhythms, and velocity, and orchestrates the parts on the fly. It can create many impressive performances, but that's not what we're talking about here today. I also want to point out that I'm demonstrating this on System Program 1.41 in March 2021. Make sure your system is up to date with the latest firmware, and be aware that this process may change in future updates. It's already improved since the release of the XM in November 2019, and Roland continues to enhance the X and the XM to make it easier to use. I'm starting with a basic custom scene to which I've already assigned some standard tones. I've made it available for download in the description section of the video, but it's nothing special. You can do the same thing with your own scene or one of the preset scenes as long as you follow the steps I'm about to outline. Whenever possible, though, start with your own init scene to make certain that factors like special key and part settings are not part of the scene. In this scene, I have part 1 active and the others disabled with part switch. Keyboard switch is on for the other parts because I'll use them later, and the drums are off. The most important thing is to ensure that I-Arp is off. Again, I-Arp is not arpeggio, and it will only get in the way. So page back to Arp Common Edit and turn both type and rhythm to 00 off. The other thing you definitely want to do is disable the switch for beat detection, either in the menu or with the beat play detector button. Even with I-Arp off, beat detector will modify an arpeggio based on your velocity and rhythm. It's the difference between this and this. In fact, the only buttons you want lit are hold, on, off, and keys. By the way, with these set, it's a good time to write the scene and use it as a starting point for your ARP-based scenes in the future. Now we're going to page back to ARP Part Edit for our currently active part. This is where you turn the arpeggio on and customize it to your liking using the same traditional settings for all synth ARPs. Turn it on. Choose whether or not to hold. Grid note is what we might usually call the ARP step or scale. Timing's in relation to tempo, like 16th note or triplet. I'm setting this to 8th. Octave range. And motif, which is like up and down, random, and so on. I'll leave the rest for you to explore on your own or for a future tutorial, as they're advanced ARP concepts or related to I-Arp. But those are the traditional basic ARP settings we know and love. Now, the X and XM are multi-part, multi-timbral synthesizers, so I can't resist showing you what happens when we start layering multiple arpeggios in much the same way that I-Arp does automagically. Enjoyed this and found it helpful? If so, give it a like to counteract the troll who keeps giving me a thumbs down, and subscribe to be notified of more tutorials like this. Next time I'll probably be covering the basics of effects, both scene effects and tone MFX. But if you have any ideas, leave a post in the comments. Also, be sure to check out my previous JUPITER-Xpert videos where I demonstrate some more advanced tips and tricks. And finally, you can find me far too active on the Facebook Roland JUPITER-X XM group, where there are a number of really helpful folks ready to help you get the most out of your synth. Until next time, be seeing you.